Battle of Flodden, how England outsmarted Scotland. What happens when a king trades diplomacy for cannonballs? How does a monarch with 42,000 troops, shiny artillery, and a divine sense of destiny end up face down in the mud of Branxton Hill? And why did Scotland's fiercest warriors, highlanders with claymores, borderers with grudges, and pikemen in patchwork armor, crumble under English billhooks and longbows? This isn't just history, it's a medieval thriller. Then buckle up, because this story isn't just worth watching, it's worth remembering. Once upon a medieval time, Scotland was less a kingdom and more a rowdy family reunion with swords. Tribal chieftains, minor kings, and ambitious nobles jostled for power like drunken uncles at a wedding. But by the 11th century, things sobered up, thanks to a bit of royal consolidation and the rise of King David I in the 12th century, who brought monasteries, coinage, and a touch of continental flair to the Scottish crown. Then came 1290, when the Scottish throne turned into a game of musical chairs with 13 nobles vying for the crown. England's King Edward I, never one to miss a meddling opportunity, tried to play referee, but surprise, he declared himself overlord instead. The Scots, not keen on being England's sidekick, formed the Auld Alliance with France in 1295, essentially saying, if you mess with one of us, you mess with both. The 100 Years' War made England look like the neighborhood bully, and France leaned hard on Scotland to keep the English busy up north. The Scots obliged, sometimes out of loyalty, sometimes out of sheer mischief. Border raids became a seasonal sport, and peace treaties were more like polite pauses between punches. By the 15th century, Scottish monarchs wanted to be taken seriously in Europe. They invested in artillery, built fleets, and even dabbled in dynastic drama. Enter James IV, a king with swagger, smarts, and a taste for continental politics. In 1496, he backed Perkin Warbeck, a pretender to the English throne who claimed to be one of the lost princes in the Tower. James didn't just send a fruit basket, he sent troops. In September, James led a raid into Northumberland, crossing the River Tweed at Coldstream. England's northern defense was in the hands of Thomas Howard, Earl of Surrey, who wisely avoided a full-blown battle. The Scots looted, burned, and left, like medieval rock stars trashing a hotel room. But when Perkin Warbeck was captured in 1497, the Yorkist dream fizzled, and James's support for the failed rebellion soured relations with Henry VII. Still, diplomacy prevailed. In 1502, a peace treaty was signed, sealed with the marriage of Mary Tudor, Henry's daughter, to James IV. Cue the royal honeymoon, brief, political, and doomed. Fast forward to the early 1500s. Europe was a chessboard of shifting alliances. The Italian wars had France and the papacy at each other's throats. Pope Julius II, ever the schemer, recruited Henry VIII into the Holy League against France. Naturally, Louis XII of France invoked the Auld Alliance, whispering sweet promises of gold and glory into James's ear. James, ever eager to elevate Scotland's status, broke his treaty with England and sided with France. Meanwhile, Henry VIII was off to war, leaving Surrey in charge of the north. The stage was set. The fuse was lit. While Henry fought the Battle of the Spurs in France, back home, things got spicy. Alexander Home, James's top lieutenant, led a mounted raid into Northumberland, only to be ambushed by William Bulmer, the High Sheriff of Durham. The Scots took heavy losses in what became known as the Third Raid. Undeterred, James crossed the River Tweed again and laid siege to Norham Castle. His siege guns, shiny and intimidating, blasted the walls. Scottish foot soldiers stormed the breaches, facing English arrows and blades. After 3 brutal charges, the garrison surrendered on August 29th. No reinforcements, no miracle. James then moved along the Till River, capturing Etal and Ford castles, and set up his HQ at Ford Castle, sipping wine and flirting with Lady Heron, allegedly. His strategy? Lure Surrey's army far from London, stretch their supply lines, and force a battle on Scottish terms. Now pause for a sec. Join the front lines of history and power. Welcome to European Battle, where epic clashes, legendary warriors, and untold stories come alive. By subscribing and turning on notifications, you're not just joining a channel, you're stepping into a world of thrilling battles. From ancient empires to modern warfare, we deliver cinematic storytelling, expert insights, and exclusive content that will leave you breathless. Don't just watch history, live it. Hit that subscribe button and turn on notifications to never miss a moment of the action. European battle, where legends clash. It was August 31st, 1513, and Thomas Howard, Earl of Surrey, was on the move. He led his English army north from Newcastle, boots crunching through the damp earth, banners snapping in the wind, and hearts pounding with anticipation. By September 4th, they halted at Bolton near Alnwick, just close enough to smell the smoke from Scottish campfires. Now, James IV of Scotland had parked his army atop Flodden Edge, a high ridge that looked like it had been carved by the gods for defense. It was the medieval equivalent of saying, "Come at me, bro," from the top of a cliff. Surrey, no fool, knew charging uphill into a wall of pikes and cannon was a recipe for royal embarrassment. So he hatched a plan, a wide flanking march to get behind the Scots and cut off their route home. If James wouldn't come down, Surrey would make him. On September 7th, reinforcements arrived, led by none other than John the Bastard Heron, a man whose nickname was as subtle as a trebuchet to the face. With Heron's troops swelling the English ranks, Surrey began his maneuver on September 8th, leading his army north and west, aiming to recross the River Till and sever James's communication lines to Scotland. At Duddow village, the English army split like a well-rehearsed dance troupe. The vanguard and artillery took the longer route to an upper ford. Surrey himself crossed at Heaton Ford, the shortcut. Scottish scouts, sharp-eyed and suspicious, spotted the movement. James, realizing he was about to be outflanked and possibly cut off, abandoned Flodden Edge and repositioned his army at Branxton Hill, facing north. It was still defensible, but not nearly as commanding. James IV had assembled a massive force of 42,000, a swirling mix of lowland levies with spears and padded jacks, veteran borderers who knew every trick in the book, Highland clansmen, wild-eyed warriors wielding claymores, two-handed axes, and bows, fighting like thunder given form. He had 29 artillery pieces, including heavy siege guns and culverins. Impressive in size, less so in accuracy. His gunners were enthusiastic but about as precise as a blindfolded juggler in a windstorm. James deployed his forces with textbook symmetry. Left flank, 10,000 borderers and highlanders. Center, 7,000 strong Scottish division. Right flank, 15,000 in the King's division. Reserves, 2 divisions of 5,000 each, Highlander Reserve and Lowland Reserve, ready to plug gaps or exploit breakthroughs. Most of the Scottish infantry were pikemen, bristling like porcupines. Their armor ranged from full plate to brigandines, padded jacks, and splint armor, a fashion show of medieval metallurgy. Surrey's English army was leaner but lethal. Right flank, 3,000 under Edmund Howard. Center, 11,000 under the Lord Admiral. Left flank, 5,000 under Surrey himself. Extreme left, 3,000 under Sir Edward Stanley and Sir Marmaduke Constable. Reserve cavalry, 3,500 under Lord Thomas Dacre, ready to pounce. Both sides placed their artillery front and center, but the English gunners were seasoned professionals. When the bombardment began, it was like thunder made tactical. The English guns dismantled the Scottish artillery, blowing holes in formations and morale alike. The Scottish artillery commander was killed in the duel, and the surviving gunners fled, leaving their cannons as expensive lawn ornaments. With his men being pulverized, James knew he had to act. He ordered a staggered attack, hoping to force the English to commit piecemeal and create openings for a breakthrough. But the terrain betrayed him. The northern slope of Branxton Hill ended in a marshy gully, a soggy trap that slowed the Scottish advance and broke their momentum. The left division, led by Lord Home, attacked in square and wedge formations. Textbook precision. They outnumbered Edmund Howard's division 2-1, and the Cheshire levies, already grumbling about their young commander and wishing they were under Lord Stanley, cracked like old pottery. Home's pikes smashed their lines, and Lord Huntley's Highlanders swept in like wolves on a wounded deer. Surrey, watching his right flank unravel, deployed Lord Dacre's cavalry in a desperate counterattack. They charged into the chaos, rescuing the remnants of Howard's division and saving the young commander from a very messy obituary. Meanwhile, the Scottish division charged down Branxton Hill toward the English center under the Lord Admiral. But their advance was disrupted by the marshy stream at the base, a natural moat that turned pike formations into puddle parties. The English, positioned on the elevated Piper's Hill, had the high ground and the advantage. As the Scots struggled through the mud, the English unleashed a storm of arrows and steel. The Scottish formations broke, their momentum lost, their cohesion shattered. The battlefield was a mess, a churned-up stew of mud, blood, and broken dreams. The Scottish pikemen, armored like walking fortresses, trudged uphill under a hailstorm of English arrows. Their armor held, mostly, but their momentum didn't. The crest of Piper's Hill became a cruel joke. The higher they climbed, the more their formations buckled. Earls barked orders, trying to rally their pike squares, but the hill refused to cooperate. It was like trying to organize a parade on a slip and slide. Meanwhile, King James IV, ever the gallant monarch, led his king's division down the northern slope of Flodden Edge. But the ground was slushy, treacherous, more swamp than slope. His troops slogged forward, boots sinking, banners drooping, morale fraying. Across the field, the English Lord Admiral's troops, having watched the Cheshire levies get turned into medieval mulch, fought like men possessed. Some even infiltrated the Scottish ranks, forcing the Scots to drop their pikes and draw swords. Bad move. The English wielded billhooks, longer, nastier, and perfect for slicing through chaos. The Scots were outmatched in the melee, their claymores clashing against cold English steel. Despite the fierce fighting atop Piper's Hill, the Scots couldn't break through. The Lord Admiral, cool-headed and charismatic, saw his moment. The Scottish division began to collapse, and Surrey, ever the chessmaster, pulled a bold move. He ordered his front ranks to fall back, luring the king's division forward. Then, like a trapdoor snapping shut, the Lord Admiral's troops swung in, hammering the exposed left flank of James's forces. And then came the longbowmen. They didn't just shoot, they sculpted the battlefield with arrows. Their volleys thinned the Scottish ranks, turning proud formations into panicked mobs. The front lines began to crack, and many Scots, sensing the tide turning, dropped their weapons and fled. James, desperate, called for reinforcements, but Lennox and Argyll, leading the reserve division, never came. Why? Historians still argue: miscommunication, cowardice, or sheer chaos. James turned to Lords Home and Huntley, but Home refused to obey. Whether it was pride, politics, or panic, it left James dangerously exposed. By late afternoon, the Earl of Bothwell finally charged, but not into glory. His troops entered the rear of James's forces, mingling with retreating soldiers, creating a swirling mess of confusion. Instead of striking the English flank, they became part of the retreat. It was like trying to join a dance battle and accidentally crashing a funeral. Meanwhile, Lord Stanley, the quiet storm, arrived. His troops approached discreetly, hidden by terrain, and ambushed the Highlander reserve behind the Scottish right. The archery was brutal. Many lightly armored Highlanders fell where they stood. Survivors fled west, only to collide with retreating pikemen, turning the escape into a stampede. And in the center of it all, King James IV, surrounded by his loyal knights, fought to the death. He fell in combat, sword in hand, within a circle of Scots who refused to yield. It was the end of the Scottish resistance, and the last time a British monarch would die on the battlefield. The English victory was resounding. They captured the Scottish artillery, adding insult to injury. The Scots lost 10,000 men, including nobles, bishops, and clan leaders. The English? Just 1,500 casualties, a staggering imbalance. Surrey and Howard were showered with rewards. Surrey became Duke of Norfolk. Howard was named Earl of Surrey. In 1524, Howard succeeded his father and became one of Henry VIII's top generals and advisors. Back in Scotland, the crown passed to James V, a toddler of 17 months. The kingdom entered a period of regency rule, plagued by infighting, weakened diplomacy, and a lingering shadow of Flodden. Next up, the rough wooing campaign. If you thought Flodden was brutal, wait till you see what happens when England tries to force a royal marriage with cannonballs. The rough wooing campaign is coming, and it's anything but romantic. Before you go, if you enjoyed this tale of steel and strategy, don't forget to follow us, subscribe, and click the notification bell so you never miss another epic chapter from history's blood-soaked ledger. More intrigue, more battles, more drama, coming soon. History isn't just written, it's lived. Let's keep living it together.